ever heard of an engineer who is a medical doctor as well? Well, I had not heard until I met Dr. Janvi Rao. Dr. Janvi, she's done her bachelor's in electronics from the University of California, San Diego. Later, she pursued her master's from the University of California, Santa Barbara. She went on pursuing her career in software development in topmost companies in US and in India. She worked for over 18 years before she decided to switch tracks. The usual corporate job didn't quench her thirst for contributing more. She started her own company in defense electronics sector. It's very interesting to know how her journey started from being a software engineer to a qualified doctor, and now she's pursuing her MD from Riverside, University of California. A classic example of what a human mind can do. There are no limits to your aspirations and desires and passion. So let's meet Dr. Janvi and get to hear her interesting story. Welcome to Prerna Ke Srot, Dr. Janvi.
Thank you very much. Very, very nice to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting the invite and coming to this platform where we showcase people who have been exceptional in their own field, people who are a source of inspiration to most of us. And here you are today, breaking the barrier of saying an engineer will always remain an engineer. You have proved the point that impossible is nothing. So tell us about your journey from, having studied engineer in electronics for so long and worked in your, corporate role for almost 17, 18 years. And suddenly there's a switch where you've studied again, but this time it was medicine. And now you're pursuing your MD. So please take us through this journey and how did this change happen?
Sure. Again, thank you very much for giving this opportunity to, be on this lovely venture that you have and lovely platform. So yes, it's been a long journey, but fairly adventurous and interesting one. So basically, what happened with me was I was always I was interested in both, bio and math. And, that's kind of how we decide, at least we used to 20, 30 years ago, right? When we had very few options. It used to be like one of those, binary decisions, go with one or the other. And it so also happened with me was that, after I finished my 12th grade, my entire family, I'm from Aurangabad in Maharashtra. So we moved from there to, the US, and there medicine has always been a graduate course. So, that was the thing, like you had to finish an undergrad course and then do a graduate medicine later on and apply for that. I was, then it was like a no-brainer for me. I said, I want to do engineering because I liked it as well. Math and physics were also my favorite subjects. I had taken electronics as an option in my high school subject. So, it kind of made sense to do all of those things. And, I was thinking at that point of time, I may, go, apply later on. But it so happened that I just got so engrossed in the engineering world, and I was happy being there, and I continued. And in fact, I wanted to learn more in that space, and I went on and did my master's in electronics, and then and it sort of like became the field, and I didn't think so much, and I kept working, and the journey continued. Then a few years later, there were a bunch of things that happened. First of all, I myself had some medicine issues, medical issues, when stressed with this autoimmune disease, and that sort of started changing my outlook. What kind of information I wanted, what I was seeing, what were the answers that I was looking for. And it also kind of coincided with the fact that things were getting a little bit slightly monotonous. And also I was the last thing that I was doing was I was working with these defense in the defense industry. And it's an exciting space, but it was not taking off at the speed at which I thought it could take off. I was ready to kind of expand and go big, but things just kind of move a little slowly in that space as well. So, and it also coincided with this this kind of period in my life, and I was kind of introspecting and trying to find some answers. So it kind of came to like a head thing one day, and it was like, I think, I want to have a change, and then that change was going to be like, I want to pursue medicine, partly to also find answers to my problems as well, and partly because I felt that there was something, while I'm doing that, this is a profession in which I can actually really reach out to people, because there may be so many people like me, right? I mean, we never really kind of bring those things about, like we don't have forums, or maybe if they are, they're maybe not that well established, at least they weren't 10, 12 years ago. So I thought this could also be my way of kind of returning to society what I have been fortunate all these years to have had really good education, wonderful parents, and who've also instilled a very a sense of service kind of thing in me as well. So all these things kind of came to head, and then I decided to go for medicine. But of course it was not like like an immediately like a done deal, because we didn't know whether I could do it. I was much much older when I was thinking about it. And so my husband was extremely extremely supportive, and he actually went out and trying to figure out what if I could do it. And then he found that there was a possibility, then but so I had to kind of go to the university, talk to them, and then they basically gave me permission, saying that you can go and apply in private medical schools, because the government medical schools have a age limit of 25 years. So but you can apply in a private medical school under like an NRI quota. So that's kind of how I made the switch.
So tell us about that. How difficult was it to train your mind? How did that happen? Because we all believe, or at least the general perception about womanhood and motherhood, and once you get married, then everything, all your passions and everything, everything else is on a lower priority. And also, studying once you become a mother, all over again, a different subject altogether. So how did that happen? How did you train yourself and your mind for it?
So just give you a brief background, in the sense that I mean, I guess I've had this my mom's sort of example in front of me, because she did. So she had her master's in MA, I mean in English and all that, but she did her educational degrees after, like, we were and I remember that, like, I was like in primary school when she was doing it. So I had seen a setup where like the family was behind, and like how my dad had supported her and how she was doing it. So there was some background kind of there. But but this was like a much more commitment in terms of the just the sheer number of years, and also the thing that it was a completely different field. So you had to kind of think differently. The approach to the subject is very different, and it is also fundamental differences are there, right? Like, I mean, medicine is more about reading and learning about facts. Like, there's so much, a lot of memorization for the facts. And engineering, on the other hand, I don't remember ever finishing any textbook or reading anything. You just kind of go to the lectures and pick up the concepts, and then you move on. So yeah, it was it so to come to that, so I had to kind of from day one, kind of tell myself that that's the change that I'm going to have to make. And what also really helped was, the college that I went to, MS Ramaiah Medical College. We had excellent orientation. They spent like a couple of days in orientation before we actually started the program, and they really prepared us very well, in the sense of what is expected as a medical student of you. How many hours you'll be expected to put in, what sort of what could be like your daily routine. And so that sort of got all of us into the groove. And that really helped. As you were saying, you talked about a very very important point, and I think that's one point I really would like to get across is, we all tend to kind of put our personal ambitions on the back burner. Not necessarily ambition, it's even could be like just a something, a passion or something that we just like to do. It doesn't like a hobby, it could be some simple things like that. And more so it happens, I think, when we become mother, because suddenly, that the child is like the center of our universe, and then that's kind of, everything else kinds of moves back. uh, so I think it is important, of course, that you have to, you're giving time to your child and your family and everything else, but there has to be, like some sort of a time for ourselves, because that what keeps you sane, that what keeps you going, right? I mean, you should be able to uh, do what you like. And I think here it is all in our mind. See, this is what I absolutely feel like. These are barriers that not necessarily somebody has put on you. Maybe it's, there is probably conditioning. I'm not saying, I'm not denying that there is definitely, a societal conditioning, that is there. But still, I mean, I think a lot of it is in us. We decide that, oh, I can't do this because I have to do this and I have to do this. But we have to, I feel, come out of that.
Very well said. See, actually, these are called limiting beliefs when we tell ourselves things that, oh, I cannot do it. So that's the first thing that we are telling ourselves, that you are not capable of doing it. Whether you've made an attempt towards it or not, that's absolutely secondary. And what you said about, child being the universe, while there's nothing wrong in having that, child is a universe, but please make sure that you also exist in that universe. It should not happen that you are on nowhere on your priority list. So very well said. How did you overcome all these challenges from multitasking to multiple roles that you were playing, and like you were mentioning that your family came as a biggest support. So tell us about all those challenges that you face and how did you overcome all of them?
Yeah, sure. So it was absolutely, the moment. So that I was, as I was telling you, once that orientation set in, and then, you start kind of feeling the gravity of the situation, because this is a thing, as I was saying, which demands, this course demands a lot of reading and a lot of memorization. And for that, you need a little bit of, you need a quiet time, and you need to spend, like, really, you need to spend time. It's not, sometimes, it can be like, the quality of time that you spend is okay enough, like, the quantity may not matter. But here it's kind of both, because some things are there which are very logical and you have to understand how they flow. So for that, you need to be like fully there with concentration, and just the sheer amount of things that you have to know, just the nature of the field. So the first thing, I think, was like, basically, I think time management was like the most crucial thing that had to happen. And what is more important for me was to kind of have my time, spend my time and study, and do the work on this goal that I had. And that goal was also not necessarily like, I got to do an MBBS, finish it, do MD later. It was not. It was more like a piecemeal kind of a goal, like, first let's get through this month, let's get through this week, let's get through these internals, kind of thing. And so that was the goal, and so everything else kind of became a little bit secondary. So it was okay if, rice was not like superly great that day, or the dal tasted a little bit it was okay. And also it helped that the family members were also okay with that. They also cooperated with that. But I think that letting go of things, where we want to be in control of everything, it's a human tendency. And I think we tend to do, women in general, maybe I'm, generalizing too much. I'm sure there are women who aren't like that, but a lot of women tend to be a little more possessive about what goes on in the kitchen, what they want, how they want things done, not just in the kitchen, in general in the house, like, this needs to be clean every day, this needs to be clean every, whatever it is. So some of those things I just kind of, I had to learn to let go of that, because, and keeping in mind what my goal was. And I think when that kind of happened, then with all these different things, this multitasking, time management, letting go of things, all these things kind of helped in making that transition from being to becoming like a full-time student, but yet juggling the other roles, but still manage to do everything as much as possible.
Beautiful. So when you became the doctor and when you realize now that you're Dr. Janvi, uh, did you remember your childhood friends who, I remember you telling me the three of you were like, close buddies and all of you wanted to be doctors and the other friends had already become doctors. They were reputed, established doctors by then. So tell us about that experience because your childhood dream was to become a doctor.
Oh yeah, I'm actually very much in touch with those two friends. We're quite close, and so uh, they were with me on every step. In the sense, once I had taken the decision of doing this, actually at first they were not sure whether I was doing the right thing because they knew, I guess, what it was in terms of how long it is and what all it takes. But of course, once they realized that I was very passionate and very set on doing this, they were absolutely there for me. And they were always there encouraging me, okay, so now this year you will be you can expect these things, this is what will happen. So it was so lovely to have that kind of heads up a little bit from them as well. And of course their constant encouragement. And whenever it was like I felt like, oh god, this is like an impossible thing, it's getting to me, like I was down. Of course, there will be lot of times that those things can happen to you. So but they were there for me, they would kind of buck me up, saying that yeah, you've done so much, you're doing great, you can do it. So let's see. I mean, we still have a dream of maybe having some sort of a hospital where all three of us can work with different specialties. But let's see. I don't know. Well, it's a still a long shot, but you never know. I didn't think I could be here, as becoming a doctor and being one of the trio that we always were. So one never knows.
Such a lovely dream to have, and I wish you a lot of luck there with that dream as well. So you mentioned about your mother being sort of a role model for you when it came to chasing your dreams and continuing with your aspirations and
Mhm.
not giving up on life just because you're playing a different role.
Mhm.
Who all play your source of inspiration?
So, bunch of people. I mean, so the first thing that got me here, I would, in the first place was I have watched my husband. He's an engineer, and so in fact, I mean, we're both in the same field, similar things. But I had seen how his approach to work was, or what he was, and he's still like super passionate about anything and everything that he does when it comes to the technology and all the things that it encompasses. So I have seen him being so excited about work every day, and it's to him it's not work, and it for him it's like that's his life. I mean, that's how it. And I used to think like I like it, but I am not so passionate about it as he is. So that was one of the first thing that got me thinking as to maybe I am probably can think of switching or doing something that I think I have the passion for. And so he was definitely my first inspiration to kind of even think that maybe I need to change. The second person I would definitely would say was has been my great role model, and my inspiration has been my rheumatologist. So after all these things happened, and I think I found like he literally, I think he just changed my life. He was just amazing. He's an amazing doctor. Absolutely took care of all my issues with the right advice at the right time, with and addressing all the different aspects about how about living with a chronic condition is, because this is not something where you just take a course of something and then or have a some sort of operation or something and then you're going to be fine. It's a lifelong condition and you need to learn to live with it. So I think that attitude towards the condition and being able to accept it and overcome it and try to lead as normal a life as possible. He has been absolutely instrumental in doing that, and he kept encouraging me, like just for example, like a few years after my condition had stable and all that, and I thought I wanted to explore hiking. So we used to hike earlier on, but I was like, oh, now I don't know whether I can do it, and similar things. So I approached him, and we were planning to do this. My husband wanted to do this Himalayan trek. It was going to be like a 7-day trip, and fairly,
Challenge.
strenuous, challenging one. And so I was like, let me first check with my doctor whether we should do something like this. And he was so encouraging. He's like, yeah, go for it. You've worked on your fitness, you've reduced your weight, you've taken your medicines properly, you're eating right. I don't see any reason why you cannot do this. Just go for it. And of course, with all the precautions and making sure that I was covered in case something happened, and we did all of that, and started this hike, and it was a wonderful experience. I mean, first of all, just the thought of being in the Himalayas gives you like opens up your mind like anything. It's just nature and you really get a lot of time to think to yourself. And just the fact that I was able to finish this with almost very little discomfort, it was so encouraging that you could, if I wanted to do something, it could be done.
They tell you that nothing is impossible. There is nothing which can you can tell that this will limit your potential. So if you have reached there, that means you can do anything in your life. I would like you to please give our viewers a little detail about this rheumatoid arthritis which you have been suffering with. As you mentioned, it's an autoimmune disorder.
Sure. So, there is the class of, I would call their conditions. It won't. We shouldn't call them diseases. They're conditions, because these are things that you have to kind of, they are with you for your lifetime. So, for certain people, for whatever reason, their own immune system in their body starts attacking their good cells in their body. So, and they can be for any different part of the body. Like for some people it can be the nerves, some people it is the thyroid, for some people it is the joints, and many different or other organs can get involved. So in this just briefly I'll tell that what happens is that normally, if there is any foreign thing in our body, our immune system produces what are called antibodies. So these antibodies go and sort of like fight the foreign elements in the body and get rid of them. So this is the normal mechanism of how the immune system works. But if for some reason, for some people, it's not the foreign elements, but the normal elements in our body, our own body forms certain antibodies, which are, like anti your immune system. And so then the immune system thinks, oh, this is a foreign thing, even though it is not. It's actually your normal thing, and normal body, different cells in your body, and it attacks and starts destroying, and then it can lead to a lot of damage. We don't have medicines that can completely stop this. So what we have right now, from our understanding, is we can stop, like when there is an acute attack. So this conditions, they go in phases. They have what is called flare up, where you have an attack, and then you'll have whatever is the disease that is there. Like, say for example, in rheumatoid arthritis, it's about joints, right? So it will, your joints swell up, and they tend to attack the smaller joints of the body. So typically it's your hands a lot of the time. So It could be shoulders, elbows, it can be anything, but hands are like very, very common that these small joints of the hands get affected. So then you'll have they swell up, and then there is this tremendous pain, there is tremendous stiffness, you cannot move them, so you feel very helpless, you really can't do much with it. So this is what happens in rheumatoid arthritis when you have a flare up, what is called a flare up, when the disease activity is more. And then you have times where you are in a remission, where your disease activity is low. It doesn't mean it goes away, it just means it is low. So there is always a background activity which keeps doing the damage to your body, but it is at a lower level. So the modern medicines that we have are also work in two phases. You give long term medicines which kind of work to keep that activity as low as possible, and the remission level time as long as possible. And we also have medicines that you take for your acute flare up, where immediately you'll have the swellings will reduce and the pain will come down and stiffness goes away and things like that. So that is kind of a very, very brief overview of how in general autoimmune or rheumatoid arthritis in this particular thing works. So the thing that came in the first thing that was happening for me was like writing the exams, because when you have a condition where your hands are swelling, your hands are stiff, your hands are hurting, sometimes it's very difficult to even hold a pen, right, in a very bad flare up. That was definitely a huge challenge. And writing exams for 3 hours, again as an engineer, and that too because my degrees were from the US, the exams are never that long. They're shorter exams, they're all either problems, proofs, and like pseudo programming. So it's very little amount of writing basically. So yeah, that was definitely a challenge to do. But again, as I said, I mean, I again want to maybe tell this to people, if they can get this out of what I'm out of this little interview we are doing, I will be very happy. That is that if these things, you can manage these conditions. So that's the thing, you have to learn to live with it. You can with the proper medicine, as I said, the long term, short term balance, and you can a proper diet and the exercise, all these things definitely help you. And that's where my rheumatologist came in. And I was a good compliant patient for him as well. And so we I made sure that I was following all those things. And I was able to kind of tide over these things fairly fine. Just take more, change. He would just change the dose and titrate it as needed, as per the demand or the condition was at that point of time. So that's kind of
So
how
that's
that
that's
was.
other than you being an engineer and now a doctor, what makes you my source of inspiration, or what I call prerna ki srot, is that you decided not to give up. You were facing a situation which actually became the reason for you to explore this field and actually take a route away from your usual journey that you were following earlier. But now, because of your own health conditions, you decided to venture into a new avenue altogether. And there also, this was a major challenge that you were overcoming. And I think, as you very well said, that it is mostly your own limiting beliefs, your own thoughts that you tell that I cannot do it. And you overcome your physical condition and your mental, state of mind also, that, how you train yourself. So I think beautiful there. And I remember you mentioning how your friends, not just those two friends, but the other friends also, who supported you, who would, be there for you when you want them, their support and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, as you could guess, since MBBS is an undergraduate program in our country, so these were all 17 and 18-year-old. I would call them kids because they were closer to my son's age, who was 10 when I started. Then to me, I guess, to my age. But oh, they were so supportive and so wonderful. They never treated me anything different. I was one of them, and I did all the fun things and absolutely enjoyed the college journey. Like we used to bunk classes, we would go for movies. Participating in college fests, and as you know, like I like to sing a little bit here and there, so I participated in those things. We did these flash mob dances. I mean, going on trips, hiking trips with them as well. So it was a complete experience, and it actually gave, it made me feel so young. Absolutely, being with those, my classmates who were so much younger than me. And I think it's to their credit that they absolutely never discriminated, because I definitely was worried about that. Because I mean, all said and done, a lot of my classmates, their moms are like closer to my age, like within a couple of years, um, from their mom's ages. But they were very sweet, never made me feel any different. And I absolutely enjoyed, thoroughly enjoyed the journey.
At this point, I also want to tell the viewers that sings beautifully, whether it is light music or classical or devotional, she sings beautifully. So do Google her, find out if she's there, if any of her videos are there where she's singing. Else we can request her, sometime that she should put her videos on YouTube so people can actually listen to her beautiful voice. And I wish you a lot of luck for your MD and all your dreams come true. You already have the potential, the power, the passion to make your dreams come true. So wish you a lot of luck for all your future endeavors, and thank you so much for coming to Prerna Episode.
Thank you very much. It was lovely being with you, Shivani, and I really enjoyed my time. Thank you.
Thank you.